high definition, and we are live.
We are live and ready to go, Mr. Tommy G.
We
here on the Goldie.
We are.
Absolutely
So
fantastic.
there we go. All right. The swarm of bees is sort of coming across here. Don't know what that is in StreamYard, but we get this swarm of bees that forms a wall. You'll see it. It's like a brick-laid wall.
Oh,
book launch last week.
Man, what a week last week was. Yeah. Friday night was an amazing book launch.
Right.
You were there, Tommy. It was
a
great
there.
night. We had some didgeridoo happening.
We
had some
did.
People.
By yours truly.
Yeah, we had some great people
the
speaking. The food was amazing.
Shana rocks for the food. Oh my
was
God, I had like 2 desserts. I wanted to go back for 3. Wanted another main course. Like, oh my God.
Great, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And lots of book signing, lots of fun.
Yeah.
It was just a wonderful evening. So now, breathing out from the process.
Right.
Now getting some book sales happening. So if anybody's interested in buying a copy of 2084 for a bit of promotion, go to adrianhanks.com and come and read the synopsis of what the book is about being in a positive future, inspiring future, about changing the paradigm, changing the planet. Which, of course, is what CAP's all about, Tommy G.
It is, but just to add with regards to your book, I mean, I put a little post out there to support, and I got like more comments than I get talking about my stuff, just talking about your book.
Of course, it's about me.
Of course it is. Jeez.
So that's a form of communication then, isn't it? Facebook?
It is a form. Wow, and hasn't it become an interesting form of communication lately?
Hasn't it just?
Right? Yeah, we could get into some controversial stuff right there.
There's lots to talk about, isn't it?
Yes.
Which is a bit of a segue, isn't it, into the topic for the month, for the next 4 weeks.
Yes.
Which is communication.
It is absolutely about communication.
Because what a word, communication.
Communication.
And the breadth that we can take that into.
Yeah.
There's so many forms of communication.
In so many different contexts as well, right? Yeah. So different forms and in different contexts, whether it's the business context, whether it's relationship stuff, whether it's inner communication, street, right? Whether it's you're communicating with someone because you haven't worn your COVID mask, and you're getting told off and spanked on the street. Oh, I'm getting cheeky now. But I think we're going to break it down. Kicking off with which one first?
Well, why don't we start with verbal communication, Mr. Tommy G?
Verbal communication,
because that's like the one that people mostly know. Consciously and subconsciously. There's a lot of conscious communication verbally, but there's a lot of communication happens unconsciously, even through verbal, isn't there?
There is.
And that has an effect on the physiological body as well.
It does.
If we're not speaking our truth, if we're speaking a certain tone. Like I gave a meditation this morning. I do a morning meditation.
So Mondays and Thursdays. 7 a.m.
7 a.m.
Australian Eastern Standard Time.
And just that communicating.
AdrianHanks.com?
Yeah, AdrianHanks.com.
Right.
Just communicating a message with a different tonality. Right. And slowing the speech down, getting into the meditative language. Right. So that people can tune in on a meditative level.
Okay.
Rather than lecturing at or speaking at. So many tones that we can use.
Right.
So many ways of communicating verbally. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Mr. Tommy G, a little bit. Right. In terms of what have you got to say about verbal communication from the understanding of the physiological.
Well, wow, there you go. My God, there's a build-up.
You always get it, don't you?
I could say, it's lucky me.
You always get it.
I could say SFA, and I'm not talking Salesforce automation or anything like that, but verbal communication and your physiology. I mean, all right, there's a couple of ways we can take this, right? It could be something as basic as, verbally communicating if you're giving some sort of form of physiological education to somebody, right? So it's pretty plain and simple. And of course, there's different mediums you can use for that, whether it's online, whether it's the museums of the past. I think they call them gyms, don't they? Right. Or we start to talk about things, the actual content, rather than the act of doing it verbally. And we're going to break this up over the next few weeks, being sort of like non-verbal, your own internal communication, more esoteric stuff, which, more into your area. There's another form of communication, emails and texts and all that stuff too, right?
Tech
Tech
You know,
talk,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Tech
Which is
communication.
what we're doing here. You know,
We are.
We're using tech to communicate.
Right, and the social
through the
form of
cap.
it.
Yeah, like
Right.
we're doing verbal communication
Right,
here.
one to many.
Yeah.
Well, we'd like to think. We've got four there right now.
Hey,
We did kick off, yeah. Woo, more than one.
Yeah.
Yeah. We begged our friends to
Yeah,
come on.
yeah.
No, it's not true. We had 10 right at the start. I don't know where
Yeah,
they kind of like disappeared to.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, it's them again.
Probably a tough topic.
Bloody hell.
communication.
Yeah. Well, they probably saw me wearing the Gold Coast cap.
Oh, yeah.
We tied with
Yeah.
Essendon.
I know.
What is with that?
You tied
And
with
4
Essendon.
points, we lost to St Kilda.
See, and you tied with Essendon, and the Saints beat Essendon on the weekend.
Just to add insult to injury. All right.
Bit of footy communication.
Bit of footy communication, banter, bit of footy banter. So, verbal communication, it's funny because when you are saying something, there is that non-verbal wrapper. Don't want to take away too much from the next talk we're going to have about next week, non-verbal, but things you say do affect people in certain ways, right?
It can be quite cutting.
It can be.
Or being embracing.
Yeah.
Sympathy and antipathy
Yeah.
comes from listening.
Could be
I
someone
can be
shady,
offended. Yeah.
slippery,
Yeah.
just in the language that you use.
Yeah.
Could be seen as a bit of BS. I don't really trust what they're saying because of the language you're choosing.
So how can we take this into the business corporate space, Tommy, in
Yeah.
terms of verbal communication right now today with all that's going on the planet? Times unprecedented times.
Yeah.
Business is not as usual.
Yeah.
We don't know what the new normal is in business coming.
Yeah.
So how can we start to use effective communication in that space, verbal effective communication,
Right.
and also how to link that in with the physiological as well?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yep.
physiological, business,
Yep.
and verbal.
Yep.
What are some of the pointers you would give
Yep.
to help support businesses now breaking through into that new paradigm
Yep.
by using maybe a new form of communication verbally?
Right.
What are the new skills people are going to need,
Yeah.
from your perspective, to move forward?
Okay, so I want to look at this with looking perhaps at a couple of extreme examples. If you look at and look, this would be quite relevant to the business world as well, but on an even larger scale. When you have, let's compare President Trump with President Obama.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Two completely different styles.
Yeah.
One was like an orator,
Yeah.
and the other one is like your ratbag leader that's super rich,
Mr. Tweet.
Mr. Maverick Disruptor,
Mr.
Mr. Tweeter,
Yeah.
and you even wonder, and then you think, is there method in the madness of the language this guy is using? Is he playing the media? Right?
He's getting to the people.
Right? It's getting
People are listening.
People are listening, and he is creating impact.
Yeah.
And then you'd have Mr. Smoothie, and you could just listen to this guy talk just because. In fact, you're maybe not even listening a
Who's
lot of
Mr.
the time.
Smoothie?
Mr. Smoothie. Oh, well, not me.
No.
Not the same, but
Obama. Mr. Smoothie. I've never heard him called Mr. Smoothie.
I don't know. Okay, I'm just going to stick it up. The guy was so damn smooth. He was so articulate.
Yeah.
He was a statesman.
Yeah.
And just because of how he could string a sentence together, how he could get people to feel a certain way.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying Trump doesn't get people to feel a certain
Yeah.
way, but isn't it funny how you can have someone that looked like was convincing and influencing because of the way they could very smoothly string a sentence together. He was an ex-lawyer, right? And then you've got the brash, super rich businessman who can be very punchy and he's provoking.
Yeah.
One's really provoking and the other one's trying to, you would have thought build unity. He's trying to get convinced. He's trying to bring people on board. He's trying to get everybody. But then you can try and get everybody on board but deliver nothing.
Yeah. But didn't they, in essence, they both had the same message, one of hope. I mean, even Obama's book was called Hope. And it was all about bringing hope. And his slogan was all about, we're bringing hope to the people.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And in some way, it's what Trump is doing. He's trying to bring hope and newness to the people as well. So they're both bringing the same message, but delivering it in such a different way.
But totally, right?
Yeah.
And one feels like a punch in the proverbials a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Trump.
It's punchy.
Right? It's punchy, right?
Yeah.
And the other one's you just get mesmerized into a trance.
Pretty hypnotic.
It's
language.
hypnotic. And I got to say, I prefer getting the hypnotic approach just feels better
for you,
but it
for
could
you,
be
for you.
right there we go, see, right.
Not for me.
Right.
Oh.
But the other one I like and go, you know
Yeah.
what, he's like, the guy's a disruptor. It's like,
Yeah.
so even if you look at this in a corporate context,
Yeah.
same, where you've got the guy, it's whether you respect them or not.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to that. So they can be speaking completely different language, tone. I'll go as far as non-verbal for this because it's about verbal, is the tone. But the words chosen, very different to achieve a same end. And I guess that comes down to style to achieve the same end. But the physiological piece, it feels different.
Yeah.
Now, if it's hitting you, you're going, shit, you're going like a bit of these shock punches, which tends to come from Trump. Or you've gone, did he just say that on social media? Right? It's provocative.
So the shock factor is going to have an impact on the body?
It's going to have an impact on the body because you are biochemical things are going to
The
kick off.
amygdala is going to kick off.
The amygdala could grab some fear.
Fight or flight.
Right? And Trump pulls that
Yeah.
quite often.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas the statesman is going, hey, look, he's more gentle.
Yeah.
Saying, he's garnering support. Whereas perhaps Trump has more of the, as a leader, goes more the impact of fear and say, well, if we don't do this, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But then he'll flip over and go, so let's make America great again. I haven't heard that one in a while, actually.
Yeah.
Let's make America COVID-free again. Maybe you should go in that line. Maybe that's going to be the policy line from now on.
Well, I did notice he's not wearing a mask and Biden is wearing a mask. So already, there's a conflict in their approach to where they're going publicly.
Yeah, look, maybe because of the environment, like they're getting up to the what do you call it, the console, the podium,
Yeah,
right? And if someone's within 1.5 meters, then maybe.
Yeah, but Trump is pretty clear he's not doing it.
He's just not doing it. I love that. I love that about that guy.
He's like, hey, I'm not doing the mask.
Yeah, that's right. Not doing the mask. I'm going to use detergent to clean myself and I'm COVID-free type of thing. Yeah. There was some elements of truth of what he was saying. Sometimes you wonder whether the guy is accidentally tripping over himself or whether he's just so damn smart that he's putting these little sound bites out there to get through the mainstream on some tough messages that he wants the mainstream to deliver in a package that kind of works. Now, Obama did it the same way, but he went the traditional but super smooth orator route. But the words you choose, to get back to the words, because we're talking a lot there about style, and you start to think about, because they do say, I know, and once again, I'm touching on verbal, that it's supposed to be something like 10% is actually what you're saying, and 90% is the non-verbal piece.
Totally, By 10%,
Yeah, and as I think about this now, I'm thinking a lot of that.
Yeah, facial expression,
the whole
the
delivery
tonality,
package, the tone, the pitch, the volume,
the stance, the body language.
Right? The pauses, all these pieces.
Pause.
Pause.
And effect.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tear that away from the content. But let's go to the 10%, the content piece. And
we got there. Hey!
There we go, right?
We got to the verbal.
So that content, verbal content that's coming over, for those that are perhaps a lot more analytical, will probably listen more to the words than being the feely, touchy feeling person that's reading a lot more of the non-verbal stuff. So the content that's coming, if you're going to be focusing on that, you're going to see a lot more impact, hard-hitting stuff from a leader that is like a Trump in an organization.
So do you think, Tommy, leading forward for people in business right now who are looking to survive, to take their business into the next paradigm in a new way, is it about them taking some time out to look at how they're communicating right now? And what would be a good way forward for people to do that, to take time out, to analyze and look at and to evaluate the way they're communicating and what possibly might need to change for the individual, for the organization in terms of that communication, that message?
So with the current situation in the world, I think what people are going to respond to is being more prescriptive. I think they're looking for leadership,
Yep.
and they're saying, "How are you going to get us out of this?"
Yeah.
Right. So there's different styles of leadership, of course, but right now, the current situation, they're going, "We're in the field of battle
Yep.
right now, and hey, Sarge, and
Yep.
Trump can do the Sarge
Get
really well.
us through it.
Get us through it.
Yep.
Give us the instruction.
Yeah. Okay.
What do we need to do? And as a leader, what are you going to do?"
Yeah.
It's like it's a lot more.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And because you've got a bit of this amygdala pressure, time, there's lots of changes going on. Everything's unpredictable. Also, give us language that is the future that we can believe in. So prescriptively tell us how we're going to get to the future out of this situation that's been painted up a lot through mainstream media and so on.
Sounds like my new novel, 2084.
2084,
Well, lead
right?
people into that paradigm, into
There
the
it
new utopia.
How did you ever time? How did you ever sort of organise the COVID for that?
Perfect.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
Right.
perfect. Time.
Okay.
Well, actually, the last chapter I wrote was a 2020 COVID-19 chapter.
Right.
It was the final chapter of the book.
Did you write that before COVID happened?
No,
or
I wrote that in April.
in
this
April?
year. Yeah,
This year.
3 months ago.
Right. So it's an extra one you added on because of what was.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Okay.
had to fit it in because it was the storyline didn't fit unless
Right.
2020 was in. Because if we look back from the future in 10
Yeah.
years' time, 20 years' time, 30 years' time, this is such an important part of history that it had to be in the book.
It's
So I've got other historical moments in there.
Yeah.
So this was like a no-brainer. This had to go in because people are going to be talking about this for the next 500
100 years, 500 years.
Yeah.
Right. The dare I say the word unprecedented times.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we talk about
you know,
1929. You know, the financial crisis that hit the world. You know, particularly in America.
Right.
That's still talked about now. That's 100 years ago.
Right.
You know,
It is.
Yeah. So this will be spoken about, I think, in the same vein.
Pivotal moment for
Yeah,
the world.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be bigger than anything of the past.
Yeah.
Because this isn't just what World War III involved a number of countries, and so they called it a worldwide
World War
war,
III.
right? World War II, sorry.
I thought, what do you know that I don't?
Yeah.
I got down the rabbit hole and you know something like that.
I think World War III, I reckon, became when we had the Twin Towers. I think we had not a World War III in the way we'd seen World War II and One.
Yeah.
It became very religiously sensitive.
Yeah.
Right? And so all of a sudden nation borders disappeared, but we had these religious borders.
Yeah. And it
Instead,
became very
which were
geopolitical.
borderless and very geopolitical as well. Now we have something that is like on a global scale.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be a war with this extra, not terrestrial so much, we think. We don't think it came from extraterrestrial,
Yeah.
but a virus.
And of course, we have social media and we have other forms of media that can spread the message in a nanosecond. Whereas in 1929,
Right.
pick up the newspaper, the news telegram, telegraph maybe.
Australia,
Yeah.
was it England has decided
Yeah,
to go to
yeah.
war
Yeah, yeah. It
against
would take
Germany,
weeks to get,
and
communications
Australia
in.
will be implicated
Yeah.
into the war as well.
and people in villages and
Right.
towns would have heard nothing.
Right.
But now everybody gets it.
It's like you have these flash crashes in the
Yeah.
stocks,
Yeah.
where it's like all of a sudden the price goes whoop, and it goes back up
in
just as
another
quick.
moment.
I thought we were having a flash flu,
Yeah.
right? And obviously it hasn't been so flashy
Yeah.
because it's still hanging around,
Yeah.
right, in some shape or form. So getting back to the verbal piece,
Yeah.
I think the words that anybody is saying as a leader right now are being listened to because they're after direction.
Yeah.
So when it used to be, it's more of the non-verbal cues and standard, and it always becomes a hum that you're hearing somebody, but you're feeling more to now, let's listen to the information. And so I think literal communication has become a lot more important. And so when communicating, choosing the words, I think actually you have to be more careful now.
Yeah.
And because it's so sensitive, people are looking for direction, that when you use these words physiologically, how's it going to affect them? Yeah. You're either going to be kicking off fear, or you're going to be kicking off hope, or you're going to be kicking off despair, or you're going to be kicking off, right? And I think the responsibility that in saying what you're saying in content is so much greater now. It has so much more impact on individuals.
Yeah.
right? Because fear is, I think, our biggest enemy. Right
it's
now.
huge, yeah. So tell me, as a thought leader, as a leader in the coaching field in the business corporate space, what would you say to the people listening in or in that space? They might be holding space for their company, for their business. Either they own it or they're working for a company, but they have a position where they have to be a leader, where they have to communicate to the customer, to the client, to the staff. What would be some words of wisdom from you as a coach in that coaching space to those people?
Yep.
I think it's really important for coaches to step up now,
Yep.
for leaders helping and supporting those people in those fields, because they may be leaders in the terms of leadership in sales, leadership in teams, but maybe not necessarily leadership in coaching.
Right.
So what are some of your coaching points that you'd like to impart?
I think
that's really important.
Yeah. So for leaders, I think it's becoming now a lot more about listening. Because we're in these really sensitive sort of times, asking a lot of questions, doing a lot more listening, doing that side of communication. So, if you're going to state, an author in the business world that's highly respected, the number one seller for however many decades, Stephen Covey, seek first to understand and then to be understood. Or, Teddy Roosevelt, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think people are really asking for that right now, is that they want to see the leader, if there's any time, it's now, to be really caring for their people. When times are great and it's easy and whatever, you can also be barking out the instructions, right? But people are on the flow, they're listening. But right now, not only is that responsibility in what you're saying, but how you're listening.
So coming
back to the heart, right? I think more so now than ever. And I think the world is in this potential place, our ascendancy right now, where it has this huge opportunity to actually engage the heart. And I think that's the plane we're going to ascend to moving forward. I'm not only hopeful of that, I do believe that's what's going to happen.
I see it already happening.
Do you?
Right. Around me,
right.
People are dropping into that more heart-centered space of that care.
Yeah.
I think the opposite can happen as well through fear, where people aren't engaging in that space because of the fear.
Yeah.
But for those that are holding that space, some of the communications I've had, some of the conversations, is very heartfelt about the staff, the company, the community. What's happening to the community.
Right.
I'm not seeing that quite as much coming from the governmental spaces. In terms of that care, it's very rapid fire, fear. That's what I'm hearing in the media, mainstream media. Still that fear-based, lock up, fear-based, wear your mask, you're going to lose your business. I want to see some care coming out of that. How can we care for the community? How can we care for business? So that leadership for me is not being shown governmentally, but I am hearing in some business quarters. Which is interesting.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, if you look at, what's his name? Dan, what's his face in Melbourne?
Commy Dan.
Commy Dan, right?
Dan Andrews.
Dan Andrews.
Dan.
About as much respect has been given to the people. So I think there's some, he's come down pretty hard, command and control. Now, what's driving Dan? Who knows? Right? Who knows what's driving Dan beyond Dan? As well, because we know that industry and government are very much intertwined. It's just so hard to see these days. And then you've got mainstream media, which is also locked up with, just follow the money. At the end of the day, really, we built systems that are built on dollars for airplay. So we just don't really know what's driving it. Now, language that he's using has been quite provocative. And people are very concerned at things that he is saying.
And quite secretive. Quite secretive. There's not a lot he's saying about in the social media. He's been asked questions in question time and publicly, and he's not answering the questions. And they're saying, we're demanding of you some answers to the questions, and he's not giving the answers to the questions.
Direct answers to the questions.
So that's not effective leadership.
Right.
That's not effective.
And this is the thing with the bureaucrats and the system, and they're trying to play the middle line and saying nothing at the end of the day.
And trying to keep his position as, like elections coming up in whatever.
Right, as well. Good luck with that one, Dan.
So it's all, there's so many layers on there to communication.
Yeah.
So many layers. But I've just been watching him. I don't watch the mainstream media often, but occasionally I'll tune in to get a perspective. And I've noticed his body language and his verbal communication has changed. He doesn't sit up into the screen anymore.
Yeah, he's kind of hunched, isn't he? He's hunched, and he's like almost can't even lock eyes with the camera. It feels.
He's in hunch space.
Right. So this is non-verbal stuff we're talking about.
So physiology, back to the physiology.
His physiology
has changed,
and in the communication. So
it's totally changed.
Right.
I mean, if you scroll back 4 months, and take a screenshot, go back and watch a video on YouTube of Nan Andrews, and then watch him now, the physiology is just changed.
Right.
It's totally changed.
Yeah.
So something has gone into the body.
Well, the guy must be getting hit by, as a human being. I mean, he is now a center point of so much attention, so much responsibility, so much pressure. You can only withstand that for so long.
And that'll go in the body. The issue will go in the tissue.
The issue will go into the tissue. There's no doubt, right? You can only do it for a certain period of time.
And it's happening with him. Yeah. And eventually what happens, he goes so much into contraction.
Right.
That, then we get arthritis and, other things happening in the body.
Other things you don't want happening. Yeah. And so when we're talking about physiology and verbal communication, because he would be a portal of so much coming in now and having to make a call, on things, a puppet of many, many strings that are getting pulled in different directions right now. And that's got to be a tough gig. That side of it for anybody, whether it's Dan Andrews or whoever it is, field of person. Now, different people will respond differently in that. And some people have the physiology to be able to handle it, some will not. I mean, I know for me, genetically, when you get down to the genetics of this as well, if I see or hear something that has impact, the same thing to someone else with a different genome, it'll impact them less. I know for me specifically, because I've had this analysed out of Canada, when Dr. Denani, which I interviewed, they analysed my DNA, and they gave me supplements that were specific to my DNA, right, nutrition-wise. And he said, look, also, here's some of the other things. Like when you see a car crash, for you, it'll leave more of an indelible print and emotional impact than it would be for someone else. So you'd go, oh my God, did you see that accident today? It was like horrific. And somebody goes, oh, wow, that accident was pretty bad. And they're moving on to the next thing. And I'm still ruminating on it.
Still in the trauma.
Still in the trauma. So those things will affect me. And what they will do for me physiologically is actually not good for me. Now, the other side of that picture is that I feel good stuff more than the other person. Either way, there's a price to pay, right? So it's a bit of a trick. So words or things you see, which is a form of, non-verbal communication, but even with words as well, will impact people more than others. And you've got to be really careful. And if you're one to many and you're speaking, that's why for politicians, it's a tough gig. Trying to communicate, well, depending on your intention. Is it to win the populace vote, or is it to give a message of, maybe what people don't want to hear but need to hear? And that's always a tough gig, right?
And it's also about the people listening in, isn't it? Because, back to 101 communication training, you get your auditory, your visual, and your kinesthetic learners.
Right.
And if you're not engaging with all three in your message, you can lose 1/3 of the people.
Right.
So, when we do verbal communication, we get the auditory.
Right.
We usually miss out on a bit of the visual, and the kinesthetics are nowhere to be seen.
Right.
So when there's just verbal communication, 2/3 of the population are not getting the message fully.
Right.
So it's really, although, depending on the stats you read, the visual is usually the highest form. So people do lip read and they do watch the eyes and the face.
Right.
But just hearing the words, one has to be auditory.
Right.
And listening skills are pretty low down for human beings. People's attention span, 3 minutes is the absolute max generally.
There
so,
it is,
we're on for an hour.
Good luck.
But it's true. So getting the message across verbally,
Yeah.
in a time frame,
Right.
with the right words, the right message,
Yeah.
in the right tonality. What an art!
Oh God. Yeah.
What an
And
art!
and to feel the room at the same time.
Yeah.
So, as an orator or someone that's giving a speech, and depending on the context and whether it's prescriptive or whatever, to be sensing the room. Some people can do that
Like I
better
did
than
on,
others.
like I did on Friday night at Uncle George.
Is that right? Exactly.
Sensing the room,
Sensing the
give them
room.
what they need.
Right, there we go.
It's an art.
It is an
It's
art.
an art. Yeah.
Right? You're actually the person that's verbally communicating is at the same time, seek first to understand, then to be understood. At the same time, they're seeking first to understand. They're feeling the room. They're actually watching a lot of non-verbal cues because people aren't talking. They're listening. Are they with me? Are they not? Is that a look of like they're pissed off, or is it a look of amazement? Or someone may be totally blank-faced, and at the end of it, they've given you the biggest applause. It's like, that was fantastic. I couldn't even read that guy or girl. I thought they were like looking at me like I was like
speaking French,
right, or whatever. And isn't that interesting then? How we perceive, if we're communicating, whether we think we're getting across or not, because then you're adjusting your language and everything according to those signals, because the other part of the communication is receiving information, to try and get the verbiage right as well.
So in this current situation we're in, with business, with clients, with customers, with staff, how can we all improve that, Tommy, to take that to that next? We keep talking about this next paradigm, whatever's going to come out of COVID-19. If we don't get into something new, we go back to the old.
Right.
And we know that wasn't working.
Right.
Hasn't worked for 40, 50 years.
Right.
It's it was crumbling at the foundation already.
Yep.
So we have to create a new foundation. What are some of the key things you would suggest to bring in from a verbal communicative perspective to help to build that so we can step into a new paradigm? There's a question.
Yeah, all right. So look, I think this is where interaction becomes really important, that it becomes very two-way, so that, you're communicating verbally and then ask for verbal communication back, and to then reaffirm and to then know and get a feel based on the language that's chosen coming back before you open up to the perspective of non-verbal cues and so on and tonality. Like listening to the language that's being chosen coming back, asking again. So I think that's why, it can be like when you're in a black hole of communication, you don't know whether you're hitting home or not. So getting in and feeling.
A bit like interviewing Tommy G. Right? Sometimes I hit the mark and I get an answer, and sometimes I have to ask the question.
Again. It happens. It happens.
But that's that's what happens in communication. Right. We can go from tangents, we get lost. We cannot hear the question properly. We got our own agendas going on.
Got your own frame. Coming from your own context.
So keeping it conscious. Wow, what a job.
Oh, what a job. Remaining present.
Remaining present.
Right.
So there's the key. There's the key. So maybe if we can lean down that way, Tommy, from how can we help support people to stay more present in that communication going forward now, to create that new paradigm.
So I think then, from a two-way point of view, in asking for feedback, you want to, and even though this is a non-verbal thing, you want to be asking for it. You want to learn how they're feeling. Right? Because if there's an overriding or overwhelming emotion that's going on in there, they're not present. Right? So if you're feeling they're with you, and I think that's why a lot of like good communicators and presenters would go, okay, are you with me? Understand? Like, are you getting it? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Put a Canadianism in it. Whatever your favorite little line is. Are they with me? Are they present? Are they here? And if they're not, then you're going to have to readjust.
So ask, right? That's what it's saying. Like
asking
continually. Right? Are you with me? Are you with me? Are you with me?
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Are we on the same page?
Yeah.
Are we in the same room?
Right. Can anybody give me an example of what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right. And not only that, here's where communication starts to become effective too, because you get people involved in the dialogue. They then feel they're involved, they're engaging, and what they're doing is involvement equals commitment, right? So they're now feeling part of this, and they're starting to own the communication. They're starting to own the vision that the leader may be putting forward. They're buying into it, right?
Rather than being talked at.
Rather than being talked at, and because that's just going to, people just going to switch off. They're going to go into their world. They're going to get bored. And that's where you want to step it up a bit further. Edutainment. I mean, maybe what Trump's doing is edutainment.
I'm on way to it, maybe.
There we go. We try. Or valuetainment is one of the other funky cool words. I think Russell Brand coined that one. I don't know. Maybe he stole it from somewhere else. But when you give it a little bit of a chocolate coating or a nice sugar coated wrapping,
put a good cap on it.
A good cap on it. There we go. Right. That then people will listen because they want to hear. They're looking at. They're after a bit of a sugar coating, and sometimes that sugar coating can be somewhat dramatic. Trump, for example, right? But they're still addicted to a bit of that. But that keeps people perhaps present and tuned in.
Yeah, I suppose that is the thing with Trump, isn't it? It's like, what's he said now?
Right.
What's he said now?
Right. Why did he do that? Why did he say that? Is there a reason behind it?
Inquiry is there.
Right. The inquiry is there.
Yeah. He creates inquiry.
Inquiry. There we go.
There's his message here.
Right.
Creates inquiry.
Yeah.
Whereas
really
probably Obama probably didn't create inquiry.
Right.
It was more the orator of, hey, I'm going to lead you down this road.
Right. Here's the vision.
Yeah, here's a vision. Yeah.
This is where we're going.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of cool when things are kind of going okay. But not when, you look at when Bush was going for his second term, and I think everybody thought that Bush Jr. was no way he was going to get in second time, and I think a lot of people just wanted him out of there. And what did he get? He got a Gulf War. And all of a sudden they
he got one or created one.
Wow.
We go down that rabbit hole.
Right, and then we can start talking about the CIA, CIA talking about conspiracy theories. Here's one about the CIA. 9/11 and all that, right? Did one get created so that they could have a leader, whoever it was at the time, lead them out of it, and all of a sudden he wins the election again. Do we have that now? I mean, if you're going to look strategically and politically, and the content that's being put out there by Trump with this COVID thing, and I'm sure he's got the best strategists on the planet now,
I'm sure he does,
helping him with how do you make this COVID thing a winner for you?
Guess what politics is,
right? It's politics. Getting the populace vote. It's the only system we've got at the moment. Unfortunately, it's still open to, rules of. It's funny in the US system too, and the campaign. Not to go off too much on a tangent here, but money talks over there, and campaigning, and then you had Cambridge Analytica, and all the controversy around that with what happened with the EC, what happened with the US election. Right. No one expected, I think, Trump to win. I sometimes wonder whether he expected to win. I don't know. I just don't know. But holy cow, didn't he win? And it wasn't by margin.
He was there for the people. The people heard him and they responded.
They responded to his message. Right.
So there's is that not a clear indication that sometimes we have to change the old paradigm into a new paradigm to get the message across? So if we've got a new message as thought leaders, business leaders, entrepreneurs, what is that new message we're delivering? And you've touched on it, Tommy, and give the message that listen to what's coming back. Engaging, the engagement.
It is, and I think to lead, you've got to pace in and lead because people want to feel validated. They want to feel validated. And so you've got to go in and listen. So ask the questions. So what you're saying is blah, blah, blah. And they go, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Or no. So, okay, well, help me understand. Well, blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay. So what you're saying is da, 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 da. And they go, yeah, that's more it. And so then there's this connection that happens.
So what do you think some of the big questions are that are going to come out of this change?
Wow.
What are people asking and wanting leadership in?
Right.
I know, maybe take a couple of moments to think about it, because if I'm running a company and I've got 200, 300, 400 staff, what do you think the staff are asking the leader to deliver in terms of the leadership so they feel supported, feel heard? What are some of the fundamental questions you think are going to maybe be asked going forward?
I think because right now where the treadmill of the world has been broken, with a treadmill, it's pretty predictable. You're just looking in front of you and you're saying, right? On the wheel. Now it's broken. There isn't one there. And you're going, shit, where are we going now?
Yeah.
And so there's going to be more dependency on the leader to go, give us the vision.
Yeah. There it is.
Right?
There it is. Give us vision.
What is the vision into this new world that's forming? And we want safety.
Yeah.
Because for a lot of people, for most, they want the predictability. Their amygdala is going, we got nothing in the database here about this situation.
No, there's nothing there. It's unprecedented.
And that, so,
it,
yeah, that can be scary. Now, some of us lunatics
right?
love it. We love it. Go into the blackness.
Yeah,
because I don't like, for me, being in jail is like, predictable. Why am I here on planet Earth? Let's go and do something different. Like, let's dive off.
Let's get creative.
Let's get creative.
Yeah.
Right?
But that's a small percentage of the population.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think without this sounding conveniently like we're sounding our own trumpet here, I think we're going to see that's interesting. That we're going to see the creators now coming to the fore.
Creative leadership.
And to give a vision. And if they believe it, and if they're not scared, and they seem not to be scared, but they're going to be the ones that are going to guide people, because people, if they believe it, people are going to believe them. They're just going to ooze it and what they say and do and so on, and lead them into the new world.
So a thought just comes to me, Tommy, and that is, if there's an organization or a business out there, who are the people in the organization, in the business, who are the creators? So maybe they've been sitting in a position where they haven't been delivering their creativity. That might be part of the secret. Let's pull out the creators.
Right.
Let's find a way to pull out the creators, and let's listen to the creators. Let's take some advice from the creators. Yeah.
I think what's going to happen is, it's funny, and you've seen examples of this on TV or whatever, where all of a sudden it's like the unsung hero, the one that just comes from nowhere, right? Creator.
The creator.
That steps up. Right?
Oh.
That is not scared. And comes out with the way forward. And everybody's going to look back and go, that dude who was always in the back and quiet. All of a sudden, he's the one. And this is when you're working effectively in teams, where if you're a really effective leader, and how does it go? Knowing where everybody sits on the bus, but knowing in different situations when you're going to pull different people in to lead. Now, I got certified, years ago on.
Did you?
Yeah, believe it or not, I stole it.
It doesn't surprise me. You're certified.
Let's go figure, right? Yes, a piece of paper
They let him out for a few hours for the show.
They did. He said, no, he stole that certification. It's a lie. In the Gallup Strengths Finder, right? And that is, they set up a system whereby you can see the strengths of each person. And it's
a bit like the DISC process and the other.
Similar, right? Psychometric testing. But how you know to use each person, right? But then you go deeper than that, and like with epigenetics, we get biochemical activity in the body. Because the language, talking about biochemicals, so it's going to affect different people differently. But at the same time, if you have a situation where certain people are going to excel and that they should be leading because they are the best one to lead in this situation, you mentioned creators, then I think we're going to see a different type of leader coming up in the organizations moving forward.
So who's leading the race to train those creators?
Right.
Okay. Anybody comes to mind?
Maybe.
Apart from Tommy G.
Right. There we go.
Cap,
That was just too convenient to answer, but I'm glad you put it out there. I wouldn't. It's not so much about egotistically would I like. Of course, my fucking ego would like that, right? But I think for the new world order of leadership in organizations and where it's going to be heart-led, that's what's going to be happening. And it's going to be creative, becoming very aware of the ego, which drove a lot of stuff in the past, the rational mind, the sort of minds that I had, like biochemically. We were like, epigenetically being what they call a crusader in one of the organizations I work with, very cerebral, very prefrontal cortex. I did some testing on this yesterday with bioimpedance, actually. And this whole thing showed a whole lot of results and certain things, but it showed more increased blood flow to the front of the brain. Interestingly, not in the amygdala scary part, right? And if it's on fire, it'll be red. It's more yellow. So it was like warm, but in the front. So biochemically, people respond in situations differently. And I think, once again, the general thing here is the opportunity, and where the opportunity is for organizations, means corporations, is going heart-led. Right?
So
heart-led and creative right brain.
So looking for heart-led leaders to lead the leaders.
Yep. Because they're the ones that people are going to resonate with, is it the other way around? That's where we start to get harmony happening, rather than the command and control approach. Now, mind you, people are looking for a prescriptive approach that look at how to and whatever else. Most of all, they want to feel safe that this one is going to lead them to the new land. And to do that, that means the leaders are going to have to be able to stand up and do that. All the new ones are going to pop up, right? And extracting that into the new world, where it's about caring for each other, unifying. Because right now the world is in this place of potential polarization, and I think that's going to happen for a period.
It's happening all around, isn't it?
Right. You know, and you've got things on mainstream versus a whole like underlayer now of, you know, if you will, even like the resistance or the rebellion as it used to be, and people in tunnels and whatever else kind of thing. The tunnels now are sort of like the messaging each other, right,
the web.
by the internet, the web versus the mainstream part of the web, right? You know, we know what that is. So you've got this polarity. The only way through those that it's got to come together as one. And from a communication point of view, the verbal communication and the asking, the polling constantly, you know, as an effective leader, but not polling because you want to hear from a populist point of view where people are going, because you want to pace in, feel them, understand them, but then step by step, as you engage with them, right? And they're all at different levels. So as a good leader, you're going to be really effective at doing that to lead them to the new world, step by step, without them pulling an emotional hamstring.
Right? Big task.
Big task.
Big task.
Huge task.
Big task.
But I don't see any other way.
No.
You know?
Well, what other choice is there?
Just eradication of the human race.
That's
the other choice.
And collapse of business.
Right. Collapse of everything. Collapse of the human race, the whole thing. And the only way through this is together as one.
Wow.
Right? Wow. Feeling each other, and that means that ego and that preconceived idea, that old programming and conditioning, has to break.
So Tommy, is it possible?
I'm
an optimist.
I'll go beyond that, and I'll say
I'm an optimist.
Right. I'll say it's going to happen. I think it's inevitable. The price we pay to get there is the variable. Right.
It could be a heavy price.
It could be a heavy price. You know, and there are certain dark forces, if you will, interpret that how you like, that are perhaps trying to hold on to the old.
Invested
in many different levels. Right. And I'm talking quantum levels as well, not just maybe dollars and cents, right? At the basic level. That is kind of being, all of a sudden it's becoming visible.
The veil is lifting.
Oh my God. It's like, I mean, I don't know if anybody else has seen that out there. I mean, you and I talk about this a lot, right? But the veil is lifting. Is that because human consciousness is awakening, changing, or is it something else? Is it
social media?
Social media, right? Certainly as a communication vehicle.
Absolutely. It's the best communication we've ever had.
Right.
It's also the worst.
It's also the worst. I mean, it's a catalyst, right? It can be a catalyst for bad or for good.
Back into the paradox,
right?
At this whole conversation.
The double-edged sword. Right.
The paradox of communication.
Right. You know, and that's why your word now, because, you know, what we're doing here on Alive, it has a lot more impact, a lot faster across the planet than it used to. Like you said, it was slow before. You know, it's like, you know, it sounds like we might be going to war.
Yeah, from here now, you know, bang, we could be in Argentina right now, the UK right now, Berlin right now.
Right.
Whereas before it would have been a telegram, send it off to somebody. It would have been, you know, taking maybe minutes or hours or days.
Yeah.
But now it's none.
Now, so we have a unifying platform. The pipes are all connected. We're all connected to it. The content that's going down there, that's where the Fourth World War, right? Let's call it digital world war, I believe is happening. Right? It's on this digital communication, digital connection. That's where it's happening right now. And it doesn't mean loss of life like it used to. Right now, what consequences come out of that, we'll see. But this is the war that's being fought right now.
So we need the generals, we need the leaders, we need people to take us forward, Tommy, into that next step post, not even post-COVID, but current COVID. Like we don't need leadership after the crisis. We need leadership now. Right. Yeah, and like where are we finding that now? That's the question. Where are company leaders and CEOs and management going to get information, getting support, getting coaching to take them through this?
Well, this is it, and this is where
I don't know if there's many out there.
And so when we talk about unification, then where you've had, coaching is one of the, I think it's the second fastest growing industry on the planet.
Yeah, but there's coaching and coaching.
There's coaching and coaching. But where you have what's happened is we've actually started to see unification in different pockets. And when you're a leader these days, you can't be an effective leader without having your support team in place, right? And you're going to have one that's going to be a mentor, which means they, for one of the better word, coach, let's say, but they coach with content because they've been an expert in their field, being a mentor. Whereas a coach will just execute on a process, right? Now, you are a mentor from a spiritual point of view because you've done the yards in that space, right? So coaching, but also mentoring. For me, I've been 28 years, you've been 20, 25 years in that space. I've been 28 years in the corporate world. I know what happens in there, right? And so we've done it around the block a few times in that space. And I think as a leader today, you're going to be looking at, okay, well, who speaks my language and who is it that's speaking the language of the future? And that's where you and I kind of integrate through the brain, where I'm doing the physiological piece on the eat, move, sleep, connecting up through the brain. And then above the brain, you'll have the antennae, perhaps for the emotional, mental, spiritual piece, right, which is where you've played.
Which is not the new paradigm. It's where we're heading.
It's where we're heading.
Or heading back to.
Back to,
right? We go back to, ancient Greece, we go back to Mesopotamia and all those ancients and Egypt, it was very esoteric.
Right.
It was all about living. And then
it was very community, very village, the cobbler and the blacksmith and whatever. They all knew. They were connected into the people.
You go back to the Essenes, and all the old stories of 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years ago.
Pre-industrialization.
It was all about community, all about connection, or suppose, depending on the history books you read, but it was more about the connection, the communication.
Right.
But somewhere along the line, things got lost. It got politicized. It got
industrialized.
Got monetized.
People became disconnected from each other. Right. As I see a low battery sign come up, they got disconnected. And then disconnected from caring. And now we're going to go back and we've got to care again. That's where it fell apart. That's where the whole thing, I think, the cracks appeared.
So if we take what we've shared today, to bring it to a bit of a wrap, coming from the heart, coming from that place of caring, listening, getting some sense of feedback from the message being delivered. So there's a two-way communication. And finding that new form of leadership